Welcome everyone, welcome to Adobe Creative Cloud Live. We're going to be doing a quick tutorial in Adobe DImension which will allow you to place your photographic brand into any photographic scene. Let's get started. So I've gone ahead and launched DImension, and of course I got an untitled document here with lots of things in it. First of all, the first set of things are some sample identities. So you have a few 3D objects. You have some models, I should call them. You have some materials. So if I switch down to the materials, you'll see those. Switch to the models, you'll see those. You also have different lights you can work with. And of course, different photographs that come with the product built in that you can just play with. You can, of course, use any of your own objects in this product. So you don't have to use these photos. As a matter of fact, we won't be using these photos. We won't be using this logo. I'm going to use some of my own stuff. But if you go to the packs, that will kind of show you like a variety of different things. And of course, you also have access to your Creative Cloud libraries. So I'm going to switch over to one of my Creative Cloud libraries, which is for a fictitious coffee company called Cov. And what we're going to use in this, we're going to use the Cov logo, which is right there. And we're going to use also just a stock photo of a cafe, like a photo or a coffee shop where people are having coffee. And we're going to implement our Cov brand into that photo. So how does this work? First and foremost, you're probably going to want to start off with a 3D model. And so there's a coffee cup here, there's a gift bag, there's a twist, there's some food. But what if you don't see what you're looking for? Well, you can always search on stock. So if I go to stock.adobe.com and I switch over to 3D right here in the upper left corner in the menu there, that will show me a bunch of 3D assets that I can work with. So for example, I can do 3D models and materials. So if I just say search 3D models here, that will show me an ever-growing library of things that I can use and things that I can have. So I think it's up to 8 pages. Oh, no, it's got a lot of pages now. It's got 22 pages in here. And this, I know why it's so many. I was going to say 8 because I normally narrow it down to the free ones because I'm not ready to spend money yet. So let's narrow it down to the low cost or free ones. As you can see, I've gone ahead and grabbed a bunch of these, but let's go ahead and jump over to the last page here where some of the more frequently used or newer things would be, or that I've used in the past here. I'm trying to see if there's anything I want that I haven't already grabbed. And also, yep, I just want to make sure I'm signed in as me. Let's go to page 7 here. I just want to show you something. For example, here's a metal record cover. So if you want to do something, you want to put your own label on your own record, you can go ahead and sync that 3D model down and it would be in your library. So lots of different 3D models, lots of different bags. I like this bag with a cutout. I might want to use that later as well. So I'll go ahead and sync that. And I recommend that you grab all the free ones that you might think you'll ever need, because then you'll always have them, because sometimes free comes and goes. Sometimes it's free for a limited time. And next thing you know, you go to grab that thing you saw 3 days ago, and now there's a price associated with it. So go grab all the free models you can grab that you ever think you might want to use. Okay, once you've synced your models, and again, if that's only if you didn't see something already there you liked, those models will be in the library that you sync them to. So if I go to my Dimensions library, these are all the various models I have grabbed for free or extremely low cost. So if I keep going, you can see there's that bag that I just grabbed and a bunch of other goodies that are here. Actually, that's the bag I just grabbed and the record cover. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and switch back over to our project at hand. Let's go back to Cov, and we are going to use one of the built-in ones. I'm just going to go ahead and grab this coffee cup. I'm just going to drag it right onto the scene. Now, when you're working with 3D, there are some basic tools and basic things you'll need to know. But again, this is not going to be very hard. It's not going to be something, oh my God, it's too complicated, I never want to do this. We're going to keep it really simple. We call, this is 3D because these objects can be moved around in the 3D space. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the horizontal tool, which will just simply let me lower my ground plane a bit. I'm just going to bring this down. All right, next, if I wanted to move this object, I've got the move tool. I can just pick it up, move it around. As I bring it closer to me, it gets bigger. As I push it further away, it gets smaller, just like it would in real space. I also have the ability to scale it. So for example, if I wanted to scale this object up and down that way, scale it this way, scale it this way, I have the ability to scale this and move this around. But you have the ability to, of course, undo, 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 and put it back to the way it was. You can also rotate the object in the 3D space. So there it is, rotating. And if I rotate it under the table, it will actually go under the table. So that's why that ground plane is very important. I can turn it around, which there's, other than the top, there's really nothing to see when I turn it at this point. So if I turn it with the top showing, you can see it rotating around. But that's it. It's pretty much just easy enough to do this with the tools that are built right into the tool panel here. All right, so the next thing I want to try is I want to apply some materials to this actual cup. Oh, and by the way, I just want to point out in the what I would call the layers panel, but the scene panel, if the object is separate pieces, you can manipulate the separate pieces. So this one is into two pieces, it's the cup and the lid. So if I just select the lid, now I'm rotating and turning and flipping and doing things to the lid itself. So if I wanted the lid to be kind of like maybe not all the way securely on top of the cup, I could turn it around. I could also pick the lid up and move it around. So the lid can, whoa, close lid, far away lid. I can move the lid around. You see the lid's casting its own shadow. So the lid is its own separate object. And now we can look actually inside the cup. So certain 3D objects might have 2 pieces, 3 pieces, 4 pieces, 5 pieces, depends on the object. And undo, undo, I'll put it back to the way it was. Okay, next thing, let's play around with materials. Materials are deciding how the object will look on the outside or inside. So if I switch over to the materials, there's a bunch of materials that are already built in. You can also get materials from Adobe Stock, and you can even create your own materials using your smart device and Adobe Capture CC. So for example, let's grab the cup, not the lid, and let's just simply click on one of these. I'm just going to go up to my favorite, the Darth Vader look. This is kind of that metallic black and silver look. Let's just simply grab this and we can rotate this around a bit. Hang on. There we go. Grab the cup. And oh, yeah, because I'm sorry, I was expecting it to change because I'm working with a different light source on this one, so we will see it turn and change that way. You see the back of it's kind of got that black metallic, and it's based on the way the light is shining on this object. So if I tilt it back that way you can see more of that Darth Vader kind of black shiny look that I was looking for. And if I tilt it this way, it's just because the light's shining directly on it. It's hard to see it. All right, but anyway, let's go ahead and undo that, put it back to the way it was. And let's try some different materials here. We've got the cup still selected. Yes, and let's go ahead and grab something a little bit more muted, like a blue matte. Simple design of a cup that you might see anywhere. And of course, you can use any one of these to be the actual material, but then you can also change its color. So for example, let me see, there was one I saw here earlier that I really liked. Let's just use the gray plastic for now. And if I click on the actual plastic itself, then I can go to the base color and I can change that color base to whatever I want it to be. So I can go into any different shade of plastic or metal and then alter its color to my heart's content. We'll get to that more in a moment because the color doesn't really make sense at this point until I actually get it into the scene that I want it to be in. So let's just collapse the color for a minute. Now let's talk about, we've got our cup. We know the object we want. I haven't done any branding yet. And I also haven't created the scene that I want it to be in. That will all make a lot more sense in just a second. Let's go ahead and grab one more thing. If I can find it here. There it is, cardboard. I kind of like these to be like a cardboard look to them. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on cardboard. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and put my scene in. And this is where I'm actually going to get my photograph and drag it in. You can either use one of the default images that's already built into Dimension. So if I wanted this to be on a table that comes with Dimension, I can drag that table in. But like I said, I've got my own kind of stock coffee cafe here. I'm just going to go ahead and drag that into the background, and it will load that image into the background. Now, the first thing it wants to do is it wants to also match the image, to align it, to use the light source from the image. This is all fairly new. You can resize the image if necessary, resize the image aspect ratio, or don't resize. So I'm going to go ahead and just say that, yes, I want to do those things, and go ahead and click OK. And it will try its best to match the current lighting conditions of the scene itself. And it's kind of doing that. The light's coming from the windows, shining onto the subject. This side is kind of darker, as you can see on this side of the table, and her legs kind of going under the table. It's getting really dark over here. So it's kind of doing those same things to the cup itself. Now, here's where these tools become more important. For example, the first thing I'd want to do is get my ground plane right to match the table. So for example, I can move this up or down. You'll notice that you have like a blue and red intersection here. This is what I would tell you to kind of match to the level of your surface that you're going to put this on, to match that to the table. The next thing you might want to do is use the orbit tool to kind of rotate the scene again to be more like what we're seeing on the table itself. So I'm going to move that more like over there, and see how that's tilting down versus up. Because if we look at this photograph, it's kind of, the table's kind of tilted up at an angle. So I'm just going to kind of match that as best I can, right about there. All right, so now I can get my cup kind of the right size and in position, because that's a jumbo cup of coffee. That might be what some of you really want in the morning. That's a little too much caffeine. All right, so let's go ahead and grab the whole thing, not just the cup or not just the lid, but the whole coffee cup. And let's use our scale tool. And we just go ahead and scale. Oh, I don't want to tilt it. I don't want to do it that way. I want to just scale the whole thing down. So not clicking on any of the controls, I'm just dragging down. Or if I drag up, obviously it'll get bigger. I can make any aspect of it bigger. So if I wanted a small versus a grande versus a venti, I can go ahead and do that as well. All right, we got that. So yes, I know my Starbucks terminology. All right, next thing, now you see it's kind of casting a shadow, and that shadow is a little bit too much. It's also just too much. It's just too much shadow here. I can control that also with the environment control. So right now I'm on environment. I'm going to twirl down sunlight, which sunlight is where that's coming from. And I'm also going to just simply reduce the height of that. Just get that really kind of more like under the cup itself. I can also increase or decrease the intensity of the light. So of course, the more light, the darker that shadow is going to be. If I want to pick my object up, again, I can just switch to the move tool, go back to the coffee cup itself, pick up the cup, and kind of move that more in position where I want it to be. All right, let's go back to the environment a little bit more. I want to play around with I can also play around with the rotation of the light. So I can kind of more match the scene that way. I'm just spinning the light around the cup. And I'm really just looking at where the shadow is. I don't kind of want it to be right there. I also want the intensity. Actually, I want that intensity to be up a little bit more. I want the cup to be a little bit lighter. All right. I would say right about there. And right about there. And that's going to be about where I want my cup to be. Okay, so now let's talk about the branding. This is where Dimension really shines. I've got a logo here in my library. It's the COV logo. This was actually used, I grabbed this from my Muse website and added it to my Creative Cloud library. I'm just going to go ahead and, wait, hang on. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Undo. I didn't mean to click on it. I was going to say I should grab the cup first, and I want it on the cup. Let's cancel that. Okay. So let's go ahead and just drag it right onto the cup itself. And as you can see, it perfectly wraps that around the cup. I have this, this orbit tool for the logo itself, so I can make it wrap more. If I hold down the shift key, of course, it'll do that proportionally. I can move it up and down the cup. I can spin it around the cup. This is where Dimensions is a lot easier to do this kind of work than trying to match this and do this in Photoshop. This would be a pain in the butt to do in Photoshop, but in Dimensions, it makes it very easy to do. get that kind of right in the position where I want it. And again, if I want that to be bigger, this time I'll hold down my shift key and kind of make that wrap even more around the cup. There we go. And maybe move it down just a bit more. All right, so next thing would be, of course, anything else you'd want. You could add more objects to this if you want. You can add more 3D, or if you work with the existing 3D object, like we said before. It created this decal layer, and the decal layer also has some properties to it as well. So you could lower the opacity of the decal. You could also change its metallic properties of it, make that look more like a silver metallic embedded on the cup. We could also change its roughness to kind of match more of that cardboard feel to it. You have lots of controls over each individual object. So I'm going to switch over to the coffee cup itself. And again, just get that final position where I want it to be. We can move it over there. We can move it back there, get it smaller. I'm going to put it right about there on the table. I kind of just don't want that shadow straddling the cracks in the table. Okay, so now once you're done with this, what are your options? Hang on for a second, guys. I'm seeing some comments here that I can't CC. Let's see. Let's move this over a bit. All right, hang on. I just want to put this sidebar away so I can see what you guys are saying. All right. There we go. Okay, so let's go in and do one more thing. Let's talk about rendering. Let's see what this would look like if we were to render it out and how that process works. Because right now you're just looking at a rough preview of this. So that shadow is like really more of a hard-edged shadow than what the real shadow will look like. And it's just, there are many more properties we can do to this, but just if you want to do a quick test, you can go over to your render queue and you can specify whether or not you want this to be low, medium, or high res. And of course, whatever you choose, the higher it is, the longer it will take. And of course, you have the ability of what format you want it exported out. If you do Photoshop, of course, it will keep the layers. And of course, where you want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and just say render, and it will start that rendering process. And depending on the speed of your computer, how many elements you have, how many properties you've done, how many materials you've used, how difficult those materials are, the colors and so forth and so on will determine how long this will take. So it could take seconds, it could take minutes, it could take hours, depending on what you've asked it to do. Now we've asked it to do something very simple, very quick, and it's gone ahead and done that and rendered it out. Now that one, I would now go back and play with it a little bit more. I think it lost much of the shadow that I want. The top's a little too bright. So this is why we render and play and then go back and continue to fine tune. I'm going to not go back and play right now. I'm just going to switch over to Photoshop and show you a couple of versions of this that I played with. That one, I took the top off and flipped it over. I think I've got another one here. That was probably test 2. Let's go to test, or was that test 3? Yeah, test 2, test 3, and here's a test 1. So that's more of the shadow I'd be looking for, or versus that, just a different take on the shadow, different take on the cup. The cup's kind of leaning a little too much there, but you get the idea. You can have some fun with this and put your brand and make it look like that cup was actually there in real time when this photo was taken, without all the compositing work that you'd have to do inside of Photoshop to kind of make it look like this. Much easier to do this in Dimension. Then you can take it into Photoshop where you've got access to all the layers to continue to work with it, play with it, do whatever else it is that you want to do. What I just turned on and turned off there. Oh, additional layers, got it. So I have the object, so even right now, if I didn't want to take the time to go re-render it, I could just paint in a different shadow under it. So with that said, I hope you got something out of this. I hope that you will also go and play with Adobe Dimension. And I look forward to seeing you on my next stream. I've just kind of been monitoring the chat here. I've seen a lot of just suggestions on adjustments, but you guys get the idea. A quick tutorial. You guys can also go in and adjust it further if needed. Yep, you can bird and dodge the tool in for a better shadow. You can do whatever you want. So lots of suggestions. Go play. Go take those suggestions and apply them. So with that said, thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody.